Hello and welcome to a new episode of Adobe Creative Cloud TV. My name is Terry White, and in this episode we're going to take a look at one of the questions, or a couple of questions I get asked on a regular basis from photographers. And that is the best way to post images from Lightroom to Instagram or other social media sites. I'm going to use Instagram as the example because that's the one I get asked about the most. And we're going to take a look at it from two different perspectives. One, if you're on your desktop, getting the image ready on your desktop and exporting it out. And two, we're going to do it also from Lightroom Mobile, already, which is hopefully already on your smartphone. And the question that then comes up is, well, is there a way to do it with a watermark? So we're going to cover all that right now. So let's jump right in. First, let's tackle the desktop. I've got some images here that I did in a recent photo shoot. They're all, well, I shouldn't say they're all. The first few, the ones that are here in green, the green label, have been edited. So those are ready to post. These ones that are in yellow have not been edited yet. So I'm not quite ready to post those. But anyway, and I've already posted a few of these, so I'm not really going to want to post them again, but just in case, just in case I needed something to show, I use these since they're the most recent and prevalent. Now you'll also notice that they're in a collection, and that collection is synced with Lightroom Mobile. So that's what this little sync bolt means. So that one's not synced, this one is synced. So that means they're already available to me on Lightroom on iOS and Lightroom on Android and Lightroom on the web. Now, none of these images have a visible watermark. That is not something that's baked into the file. It's not something that was put into the file in Photoshop. It's not something that's there. However, I am taking advantage of the watermark feature under the Lightroom menu. This is there for you to put in as many different watermarks in Lightroom, so in your catalog, so you'll be able to use them as often as you need. And so when I say edit watermarks, it just comes up by default with a custom one that's just the copyright and your name, or a name, may not be your name, but a name. And you can go in and of course either use text and format it any way you want, so you can use whatever font you want. And I used to use a text watermark because my logo was in Trojan Pro and I could just use text to do it. However, then I got a little fancier and I switched to an image. Now I'm going to recommend, if you're going to use an image, there's a couple recommendations I'm going to have. So first of all, let's go ahead and switch over to my image-based watermark. And I know it's hard to see small like this, but one of the things you're going to want to have or be ready for is that if you're doing a watermark that's an image, let me scroll down here a little bit. My watermark needs to be able to be placed on images no matter what color the background is, whether the background's white, black, or anything in between, any colors or scene or whatever, and I want the watermark to show up. So that's going to help you determine in the first place how to do your watermark. So what I did was my logo in white on a transparent background in Photoshop with a black drop shadow. That way, if I'm putting it on something white, it will still show up because of the drop shadow. And if I'm putting it on any other color, it'll show up because it's white. All right, so that's one thing to consider. You can, of course, make as many watermarks as you want. So if you want one for dark backgrounds, one for light backgrounds, one for intermediate backgrounds, you can pick and choose as you export. But this way, I kept it simple by just putting that watermark in without having to worry about what kind of background it's going to be on and having to switch all the time. So I chose the ping. And now here's the other thing. If you want one with a transparent background, JPEG won't work because the JPEG format itself cannot be transparent. So it doesn't matter if you put it on a transparent layer in Photoshop. As soon as you save it as a JPEG, it's going to have a white background or a background. But if you make it transparent in Photoshop and save it as a ping.png file, it can contain transparency. Then I brought it in, I just chose it and I said that I wanted it to be 70% opacity, so it's not 100% white. I want it to size proportionally with the image I'm putting it on. So if I'm putting it on a super high-res image, I still want it to be small. I don't want it to be tiny. And if I'm putting it on a low-res image, I don't want it to be huge. So I want it to stay proportional to the size of the image. This also allows you to choose what corner or where you want it in the image. So I have it in the lower left corner. And I have a little bit of an inset. So that way it's not on the edge, it's always coming into the right a little bit and up from the bottom a little bit. And of course you can rotate it if need be. So that's how the watermark got created in the first place. Now it's time to do the export for the image to get it ready for Instagram or posting anywhere else on social. So to do that, you're going to go up to your file menu. So now keep in mind, these could be PSDs, they could be RAW files, they could be any format, but of course, when we're going out to the web and we're going out to social media, we either want a JPEG, which is the most common, or a PNG file, or PNG. So let's go ahead and go to export. Now I've already got a preset set up for this called, as you might imagine, for Instagram. Now I'll just walk you through it. Where does it, first of all, it starts with where does it put it? It exports it to my hard drive. It puts it in my Dropbox folder. That way I can get to it from other places. But you can put it anywhere you want, any folder you want. So I have a folder in Dropbox called, affectionately, for Instagram. All right, then I'm not doing any file renaming. Don't care about that. I'm not worried about video right now. And the format I'm putting it out in is JPEG sRGB color space. Why sRGB instead of a custom one or Adobe or Pro? Because sRGB honestly looks the best on the web. It's a limited color space. So for print, I would probably use Adobe RGB, but for the web, I tend to stick to sRGB. Now quality, I used to take the quality down a little bit because I don't want a super high quality image for someone to steal on the internet. But honestly, I've gone up to making my images 100% quality because a lot of these social media networks, especially Facebook, will compress the file and make it look worse. So if you start out low, it's going to look even worse once it's posted on social media. Now here's the most important one. Now Instagram in particular says that this is their recommendation that images be no bigger than 1080 pixels, 1080 pixels on the longest dimension. So Lightroom has a way to do that. You can do width and height, or you just go straight to long edge. So if it's a portrait, it'll be 1080 high. If it's a landscape, it'll be 1080 wide. If it's square, it'll be 1080 anyway. And so I say don't enlarge it if it's smaller than 1080 for whatever reason. If I had one that small, don't enlarge it, just keep it the size it is. And of course the resolution, 72 pixels per inch for the web. You can have it keep all your metadata, remove location information, things you want to keep private. But here's the big kicker right here. What watermark to use. So this is where you get to pick and choose which watermark you've made that you want to use. And then after it's done, just show it to me in the Finder so I don't have to go looking for it, or show it to me in Windows Explorer. So if I do the export, it'll do it. It'll take me right to it in the Finder. If I hit my space bar so you can see it, there it is with my visible watermark in the lower left-hand corner. So that's my JPEG that would be ready to post on social media. That's no bigger than 1080 pixels on the longest edge. It has the watermark on it. It's a JPEG. It's not a PSD or a RAW file. That one would be ready to go. So that's the workflow from doing it, or doing it from the desktop. Now, if you're going to go mobile, then there's a different workflow. That workflow requires you to get the image over to your mobile device. For me, the easiest way to do that is to just sync it with Lightroom Mobile. That way, I don't have to worry about it. All these images, as soon as I drop them into this collection, if I add more images to this collection, they'll already be on my phone when I get ready to go to my phone. So I'm going to bring up my iPhone 7 Plus here. I'm just going to go ahead and tap on my Adobe folder. Inside my Adobe folder, I've got, let's go to my Adobe folder, I've got the Lightroom app. So when I go to Lightroom, here are the same images we were just looking at, and I can get one of these images. Let's say we want to go to this one, same one we were looking at before. And now if I want to post this to Instagram, I can go straight from Lightroom Mobile to Instagram, and it'll post as is. Of course, when I sync those, those don't have a visible watermark on them, so that might be a concern. So we'll talk about how to, one way to get around that without having to put physical watermarks on them on the desktop. So first and foremost, if you just want to go straight and say, hey, I don't care about the watermark, I want to just post this to Instagram, here's the trick. Under the share menu, there is share. But Instagram traditionally has not worked with the share options on iOS. It has worked with the open in. Now, that could have already changed. I haven't checked. Well, here, we can go check. Let's go pick here. I haven't looked at this in a while from the share aspect. And okay, and they have added this as a share extension. So now you can just hit share. There's the Instagram icon. And you would then just be ready to post to Instagram. Now, the way I was going to show it to you before, and this is actually the way I still do it, and especially the workflow with the watermark, is I go share, and instead of doing the share, I do open in. That's the way it has worked from day one. They just recently, with their updates, added the share extension to do it with the share. But if you do open in, you get the same choice. Do you want to open it as small, 2420, basically the size 2048, the size of a smart preview, or the maximum available resolution? Of course, this doesn't need to be any bigger than 1080, so 2048 is plenty enough. Now I get the open or import with Instagram. I get Instagram, and let's see, I haven't done this one in a while. Let's import with Instagram. Let's see what happens with that. That takes me over to Instagram and gives me the standard, had I just chosen it from Instagram, ready to go. So I can resize it using the little double arrow there. And then I could go next, 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 put in my description, my tags and all that, and walk my way through it. I'm going to cancel out of this. And I'm going to go back to Lightroom Mobile. And on Lightroom Mobile, what I'm going to do instead is now talk about the way I would watermark it. Because, like I said, as of today, there is no way to watermark it in Lightroom Mobile. Lightroom Mobile doesn't have access to your watermarks that you've made on the desktop. So on iOS, I use a different app for this. I go from Lightroom, I use an intermediate app to put the watermark on it, and then go from there to Instagram. And that intermediate app is called iWatermark Plus. So when I tap open in, if all I want is to go straight to Instagram, I go straight to Instagram. But if I want to watermark it first, I go import with iWatermark. Once I do that, same thing. This is a third-party app. I think the cost is around $3. And I have already set up my watermark in the app. So as soon as I bring a picture in, it's ready to go. I can even tap and move the watermark around if I want. And that's a ping file, so it's transparent. But once I put the watermark where I want, it will stay there until I move it again. And then that's it. I'm ready to go. So I would just hit the share icon from here. And now I can go straight to Instagram. So if I go straight to Instagram, that will let me put in my caption and then share it. So you have the same abilities on iOS even to do it with a watermark, but you just have to put the watermark in with a different app. And you can just use Lightroom Mobile to get to all your pictures, all your edits, all your PSDs, your raw files, your whatever, the things you wouldn't necessarily be quickly able to do any other way, and have the same exact workflow. So that's it. That's my tip for going to Instagram or other social media sites from Lightroom on the desktop with or without a watermark, from Lightroom Mobile with or without a watermark, thanks to iWatermark Plus, at least as an interim step for now. So that's it. Take care. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.